The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to Fearless Fabulous You. I am your host, Melanie Young, and I hope you're having a wonderful morning and day wherever you are. I love spotlighting interesting people and talking about some of my favorite things, which include eating, drinking, and exploring, like I do here at Fearless Fabulous You and also on the Connected Table Live, my other podcast. And I'm dressed in all these beautiful colors today because we're taking you somewhere that is so much fun in the United States. We're taking you to the tropical paradise of Miami. Now, I've been to Miami a lot. I used to produce many, many events there for all my clients when I had my public relations agency. And I love the flavors, the new Floridian food. I'm very good friends with Chef Norman Van Aken and many, many people in the culinary world. My guest today is one of them. Her name is Ellen Canner. She's an author and a food expert. She has a great Substack called Broccoli Rising that you should check out. And a really terrific book called Miami Vegan, Plant-Based Recipes from the Tropics to Your Table. Now, this topic interests me because I love eating plant-based food dishes. I try to do it a lot when we're home here in New Orleans because everything is just laced with meat, especially pork when you go out. Miami just lends itself to this, because it's a melting pot of cultures and a gateway to Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean. There's so many amazing flavors that come in from there. But I didn't know until I got Ellen's book and did some research that Miami is also among the top 10 plant-based cities in the United States. That's amazing and great, particularly if you do like to travel and like to find plant-based restaurants in your area or cook. So Ellen Canner joins me today on Fearless Fabulous You, and that's going to be our topic, how to cook delicious, tropically inspired plant-based dishes in your home. And we're going to get tips from Ellen on where to go when you visit Miami. So Ellen, welcome to Fearless Fabulous You.
Hello, fabulous Melanie. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed. We're both members of La Dame d'Escoffier. We've been in the industry a long time. Talk to me about you. Where did you grow up? Are you a Miami native? I think you're like a multi-generation Miami native, right?
You're right. And that makes me a bit of people like, you're a fifth generation Miami native? How is that even possible? Yeah, I guess my great grandfather came here when there was more mosquitoes than people, but yeah, we set up there.
What was it like growing up there? I mean, it's funny, like my husband's from New York. He actually grew up in New York City, and nobody's from New York and grew up in New York City. So what was it like growing up in Miami? Because when I used to go there with my mom, dad, and grandparents, it was very different from where it is now.
Diplomatically put. And when I was growing up, it was too. It was still, you could still see vestiges of it being like a small, easy, tropical town. It has gotten so built up and so glitzy and glam, but there's still like little hints of flavor of what we used to be. And I wanted to get all that into Miami Vegan.
Well, you did. Now, I also understand you have been vegan for 25 years, right?
Yes. And believe me, it was not cool to be vegan then. There were no celebrity vegans then. There weren't very many vegan products in the stores, or at least any that you would want to eat.
Well, I'm curious why you decided to go vegan and what it was like for you, because that's a big choice and it's a lot of work.
When you've been doing it a while, it's a breeze, and I want it to be a breeze for everyone. But you're right; it's a big mindset change, and it's a big change in your diet. I started out when I was 12 because I love animals and I didn't want to eat them anymore. And also, when you're a tween and you're looking for ways to push your parents' buttons, this is a good one. And you get so many benefits out of it. I learned so much more about our food system. I certainly learned how to cook and all the things that vegan offers. Health, sustainability, which matters a lot when you are in the hurricane strike zone, as we both are. Um, Animal rights. You get all that, and you can get a great dinner too. It's a win-win.
Well, Ellen, I'm curious, as 25 years, let's take it to now. How has embracing vegan been beneficial for your health, like your skin, your hair, your overall well-being? I'm curious what you think the long-term benefits have been.
I think they have been great. I think I told you, I had a runny nose forever as a little kid. And I never associated that with dairy. I don't think my parents did either. We didn't really know any better. When I gave that up, that all went away. I wasn't looking to lose weight, but I was sort of at that awkward tween age, and it just melted off me without any issue. I take no medications. I feel great. That tells me a lot right there.
I think it's so interesting because I did a lot of research on this when I was doing the health coaching program to be more aware of the different aspects of health and wellness. And I learned that many who are vegan actually have a 30% less body fat, which I thought was fascinating. And the dairy you mentioned is true. Dairy I love dairy. God knows I love cheese. But when I have too much of it, I get a hoarse voice. I get congested. My skin gets very red. So I've learned while I'm not vegan, I do tend to be more plant-based and I'd be 75% plant-based in my diet now whenever I can. It's a little hard sometimes when I'm traveling for work, but I think it's great. And the wonderful thing about it is the sustainability, which you talk about, which is so important, and the affordability. You're actually saving money when you're doing this, right?
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I know one of the myths about a vegan diet is, oh, it's so expensive. Beans and rice are my love language. They are very much a part of Latin and Caribbean cuisine. And you know what? New Orleans cuisine too. It's not in Miami Vegan, but I have a plant-based red beans and rice recipe that I absolutely adore. These foods have been part of our culture, every culture, and they're so affordable. They're pantry friendly. They're a win.
We always have beans, a pot of beans for the week. It's a great source of plant protein, which is so important because everybody always says, well, how do you get your protein if you're vegan?
Oh.
Well, there's plenty of ways to get plant-based protein. You just have to be wise about it. And beans is one way, right? What are some other ways?
Quinoa, that's sort of the one we forget about. It was sort of in for a while. And I guess, I don't know, the PR person got, moved on to something else. But it is a wonderful source of protein. And there are bean pastas now that are really high performing. So you can have a bowl of noodles and not feel bad and get super protein. And I know there are still tofu skeptics out there. I think it is so versatile. It does the same thing. My husband, who is an omnivore, says it does the same thing a chicken breast does. It just does it without the chicken. It's a blank slate, so you can do anything with it. It takes on the flavors of anything you cook with it.
I think so too. I think a lot of it's how you cook. And I travel to Italy a lot for my wine work. And over there, particularly like in Sicily and southern Italy, ceci, which are chickpeas or garbanzos, are a staple. They make them into chickpea flour pancakes, beans, everything, and very high in protein, very affordable, and I'm sure a big staple. Now I'm going to hold the book up, Miami Vegan. It's going to be also, I actually have it on my Melanie Fabulous Instagram with a link to purchase, and I'll also be doing a little Q&A with you on the connected table, which you kindly sent to me. How did you organize the book? Let's start with that. And let's start with, since it's tropically inspired, some of the basics that you would recommend purchasing that you could get anywhere, not just the tropics.
A good spice cabinet and some pantry staples will see you through anything. So some of the spices that are part of Miami vegan recipes often are allspice, which, even though it sounds like a spice blend, isn't even a spice. It's a berry. It's a tropical berry that's kind of earthy, kind of mildly sweet. Cumin, which is used a lot in Middle Eastern cooking. It has a sort of low, funky, earthy note. And chilies and citrus. And maybe some olive oil. You got it made.
I think that's great. And, spices were always used to preserve food in the tropics and everywhere. So that was like how it all came. And they all kind of, Miami as well as New Orleans was a big port where a lot of the spices came in from the Caribbean and also from Africa. So there's a lot of markets, I would think, probably in Miami as well as New Orleans where you can get, good quantities of these spices. Right. So let's talk about something that I love in Miami, which are the fruit and vegetables. I mean, there's so many great tropical fruits there. Some of them make it to New Orleans. They very rarely made it to some other places I used to live. Of course, New York, everything's available. Let's talk about, first of all, I asked you how you organize the book. So let's start with that because I think it's good to kind of let viewers and listeners know what to expect when they open the pages. And I'm sorry, it's a little blurred. I just realized that my background's blurred.
You can see it behind me.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Great. Okay, good.
Well, thank you for getting me back on track. One of the things I want people to know about Miami, first of all, I want you to love it. And I want you to love these big, bold flavors. But you've been to Miami, we don't really follow a lot of rules. Good. So if you're hungry in the middle of the afternoon, if you're hungry after one of your fabulous late night parties, there's going to be a restaurant open that's going to feed you and make sure you have a great time. So I say there are no set meal times in Miami, which is why I start the book with a section called Bocaditos, little bites. So they can be, I have a mango bread that you can have in the morning with your cafecito. I have a vegan version of a Miami classic, which is smoked fish dip, which of course we make without the fish. But we keep the smokiness. So you can get something wonderful to eat any time of the day or night.
So what do you use instead of the smoked fish, Ellen?
If you've ever had sushi, you get the outside is nori. It's seaweed, and it does have that briny taste. If you toast it and grind it into a powder, and you can also buy it commercially as a powder, it gives you that brininess. It gives it that seafood hit. In fact, it is so close to the real deal for me that I can't eat it, but my husband loves it, and all our guy friends do too.
Well, the one that I'm looking at is called smoked sea dip, and it's got artichoke hearts, which I think are just fabulous, and tempeh, and nori dust. You got a lot of dust in the book, which is kind of magic dust, nori dust, which is kind of fun. Liquid smoke is another great ingredient to have, and vegan mayonnaise. I think, I'm a big artichoke eater, so that just sounds fantastic. You also, I noticed I'm a biscuit maker, and you have a vegan cat head biscuit in here. So, to try that because I make a lot of biscuits. Mine are with buttermilk. So how do you, in a cat head biscuit, how do you get the same texture without the milk and the dairy?
I can't remember now because I've done it different ways, different times. If I use vegan yogurt, which does have that clabber taste, or I suggest making it with oat milk that you clabber with a little lemon juice or vinegar. It's vegan buttermilk, and you do want that richness and that tang.
Well, that's interesting because you can make buttermilk by adding lemon or vinegar to another type of milk product, right? Absolutely. So that's kind of, I think you got to practice with that you definitely can do it. I'm going to, one of the things I'm going to do, we haven't been shopping. We got to go shopping, but I have your tropical granola on my list because I can't stand store-bought granola. usually too much sugar. I don't like a lot of sugar, but yours looks really easy to make and very flavorful, and has a little bit of agave, so I can adjust it. But it's got all the things I like: the rolled oats, the unsweetened coconut, the cashews, pumpkin seeds, cinnamon oil, and coconut oil, and of course dried fruits like mangoes and papayas, which I think are really great to add into anything like salads and breads. So you start with bocaditos, and bocadito means little bites for your mouth. Right. So take me through, because a lot of the references in here really do refer to the cross-cultural aspect of Miami, which you say actually has its own dialect, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, because we're the crossroads of Latin America and the Caribbean, that all winds up on the plate and it winds up on the street. And we wind up kind of taking little bits from all these languages and dialects and putting them together in a Miami way of speaking. I'm not even that aware of it. There's a linguist who pointed it out to me. It's like, oh, that's just how people talk.
Well, when I've been to Miami, I know like everybody I know speaks Spanish. And it's kind of like, if you want to move to Miami, learn Spanish, because it is important to embrace having a duolingo life down there, because it's such an important part of the culture and heritage now. But I got to see a dialect, because all the Caribbean countries have different dialects. And even here in New Orleans, which is similar, you've got, the Haitian community has their dialect. You've got people who've come from Central America, Vietnam. Everybody has their own way of, and then of course you have the Cajun dialect, which is its own thing. Now you go really straight. And by the way, I love the pictures in here. Thank you for having nice photographs. I actually don't like cookbooks that don't have photographs. I don't know why, although I do love the silver palette. It's a classic and has no photographs. But
I know, but that's an example of, it wasn't that long ago, but it was quite possible until not too long ago to sell a cookbook without photographs. Now you absolutely have to have them.
Yeah, like The Joy of Cooking, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, all the classics don't have photographs. But now in this new visual world, photographs really help. And, and they sell the dish, and also they're Instagrammable, which is so important. Right. You go right into succulents, which I love that term, because succulents means so many things. You'd say juicy, fresh, ripe taste of the tropics. And succulent is not just fruit. How do you define succulent? And let's talk about some examples in this very specific chapter, which has got lots of things that I like.
It can also be like the bright tropical flavors you're talking about. That can be present in salads, and often is. It's very fresh stuff that kind of makes your mouth pop, makes your mouth water.
So let's talk about some examples. There are a few in here. The 7-seed quinoa, because we were talking about the practicality of quinoa, which I happen to love. My husband doesn't. But quinoa, 7 seeds, and it is with spinach and sesame dressing. Okay, that's succulent to me, because I happen to love spinach and I love sesame. And that's a really great example. I'm going to go to page 52. Let's talk about that dish, and maybe also one that kind of struck me, because I've been back and forth to Italy a lot, is the sheet pan panzanella.
Oh, you know what? I love that recipe. Thank you for pointing it out. I know it gets buried under some other more obviously Miami choices. But yeah, panzanella is a great Italian origin dish that basically makes use of stale bread.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be like an artisanal loaf of French bread. I had some cornbread that needed to be used up. And I thought, you know what, can we do this another way? And, there's great summer vegetables in there. There's zucchini and onions and peppers and stuff. And I thought, instead of just like doing something Italian or even ratatouille, which I made the other day, what if I just sort of claimed the southern part of it and toasted the cornbread for croutons, roasted the vegetables. So easy. And it was so good. And it's very, very pretty, because you've got all the bright colors from the vegetables.
It's pretty. And also it's a great way to repurpose food that may not be ideal, because you can maybe take some of those fresh vegetables that maybe are several days old. And, I'm big on repurposing and trying not to use everything before it goes bad. And I learned that just trying to be fabulous and frugal, which we're doing right now. Last night we made don't laugh, speaking of cornbread, we really have nothing left in the house because I'm trying to limit our shopping right now. And we really had eaten everything. And I ended up making tomato pie. We had a Creole tomato. We had Vidalia onion. We had basil. We had olives and some grated Parmesan. And I took Jiffy corn mix. It's the only thing we had. I didn't feel like making crust. And I just spread it all up. It was like this. It was like my version of a pizza it was so good. I think the only thing I would have added was the Duke's mayonnaise. But but you make vegan mayonnaise, by the way. How do you make vegan mayonnaise, or do you just buy it?
I usually just buy it, but you can make it. And the secret is aquafaba. That is the liquid in a can of chickpeas.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff is magical. Talk about not wasting. That was stuff we were told to throw out for years. And it is a brilliant egg substitute. It binds, it lifts, it whips. That and lemon juice, you can make some fantastic vegan mayonnaise. I use aquafaba for mousses, especially in the dessert section. I can't believe we were losing the opportunity to use this stuff. I freeze it now, so if I can't use it right away, I freeze it in ice cube trays. And then I pop out what I need. It's fantastic.
Well, I think that's interesting. I did a story on aquafaba many years ago, and I tried. You have to work it a lot and like whip it up quite a bit to get to where you want. Mm-hmm. But so just to recap, aquafaba, everybody, is the juice in your can of chickpeas. Don't throw it out. You can actually, as Ellen said, freeze it. You can whip it up and use it as an egg substitute. I also like my I call it pot liquor. It's the gravy left when you're steaming vegetables, or the bottom of we had cut up watermelon, the bottom, the drippings, as they say. I use all of that. And sometimes I just drink it as juice, and sometimes I just save it and use it, freeze it, and put it in cooking water. Everything's repurposable just about, right?
It is. And kudos to you for doing that, because we waste up to half our food in this country, and we cannot afford to do that. Not at home, not for our country, not for any of it. We need to use what we have.
Yeah, I grew up in a house with extreme food waste, so it impacted me deeply in my life. So let's talk about I touched on the 7-seed quinoa with spinach and sesame, because I think quinoa is really one of the great make one big pot and reuse it and create different things with it all week, much like beans or really great brown rice or forbidden rice. And you can just mix it up different ways. And we do that here a lot, because when we cook at home, because we do travel so much, when we get back, particularly from Italy, we go lean, green, protein, simple, to get our bodies back. Because you go into carb shock when you go to Italy, and everybody wants to wine and dine you. What I like about this 7-seed quinoa, there are a lot of seeds in it. So if you're not into seeds, this won't be your dish. But there's Cuban seeds, fennel seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. And then, of course, the quinoa and pomegranate. And then my favorite, spinach. I love spinach. I'm like the Popeye girl.
So green, so versatile.
Yeah.
Wilt it down. You can have it nice and fluffy and fresh. It's so friendly.
Could you do this with kale also, or collards, which are some other widely available greens in our neck of the woods?
Absolutely, you could. What I would suggest with the collards, since I like a good fibrous collard, actually, but I know other people do not. I have a recipe in there for collard confetti, which is shredded collards made a little more pliable because they're shredded, but with lemon juice and just like a lick of olive oil, and it makes them like confetti. They're very soft and fluffy. So yeah, you could totally fold that in with the quinoa, and it would be bright, it would be green, it would be fabulous.
So I'm curious. So I like collard wraps, which are a great vegan technique too, and also if you don't want to do carbs. But how do you properly soften and tenderize collards and kale to get them less fibrous if you don't like the fiber? I know my husband David hates fiber. He just hates chewy salads.
Well, just like we relax and soften when someone massages us, so do these greens.
Mm-hmm.
If you massage them in your hand with a little lemon juice or salt, it breaks down the cell walls and just sort of makes them, you can see like the bright green comes up. You can see that they yield more in your fingers. It just takes a couple minutes. I think the greens like it. I like doing it too.
Well, I'm lazy, but I got to try that. We gotta mix up our green situation here because we're in the arugula romaine rut, and we get. I like collards when they're seasoned. They sure are plentiful, and I don't like to have them with pork, but I like to cook with a little vinegar and sugar, and that's really nice too. Kind of gets the bitterness tempered. So, what are some good meat substitutes? Particularly something like jackfruit or tempeh. What are your key ones, and what are the best ways to work with them? And maybe give some examples.
I do like tempeh. It is another fermented soy product. It's got more of the density. So if you have textural issues with tofu, it's got some oomph to it. And I have a recipe in Miami Vegan for house smoked tempeh, because of course we all love our bacon, unless you're vegan. And this has smoked paprika and liquid smoke in it. So you get a double pow of smokiness with a little miso for saltiness. So I think another little bit of agave for balance. And that's great in a collard wrap. That's great in a couple different recipes. You can, it's whatever you would use lunch meat for, you can use this for.
Yeah, I think you just have to practice to get it right, because I think many people are intimidated by tempeh and tofu, A, trying to figure out what it is, and B, is it really okay for you? Because everybody goes, oh, soy. It's fine. And and just understanding and the different textures. And it's just finding what you like and learning, and tofu comes in different textures. So obviously the firmer ones are better for some things and the softer ones are better for scrambles, like instead of eggs. As an egg substitute, they make great scrambled eggs. Now you have a section in Miami Vegan called sizzles, hot pots, and pot cakes. First of all, what is a pot cake? Because my idea of a pot cake might be different from your idea of a pot cake.
Actually, I bet it's the same.
Oh, really?
If you make a pot of rice and beans, and there's always, say you wind up chatting with your friend Melanie for a few minutes, and the bottom, you get some stuff that's stuck. That's pot cake, but it's always the best parts. It's all the best parts stuck together. And to me, pot cake is a metaphor for Miami cuisine in general, because we do have such a mix. So I do have some great rice and beans recipes in there. I have a vegan arroz con pollo, which is a Cuban classic chicken rice, except this doesn't have chicken. You can make it with jackfruit. I love it with fresh jackfruit. Green jackfruit is very meaty and it's very vegetal. When jackfruit is ripe, it gets to be sweet. You can do other things with it. But I could not find enough commercial green jackfruit on the market to make it accessible for everyone. And I do want this to be accessible for everyone. So I say, if you can use jackfruit, do, but you can make it with firm tofu. You can make it with tempeh. What makes it is the rice and the way you season it. Not the chicken you're after.
Well, jackfruit's tough. I've been sent samples of it. Not great samples. So I haven't embraced jackfruit as much as I like tempeh over tofu. Now, what I do like, and what you do talk about here, my ideal meat substitutes, particularly when I'm dealing with wine events, and particularly wine events in Italy, where everybody's eating meat, I love asking for mushrooms and eggplant. Mushrooms and eggplant are great because they also have a little bit of a tannic aspect to them that helps when dealing with red wine. Now, you have a dish in here called John, D-Jon, not John. Is that right?
Perfectly pronounced. John's a party dish too. John mushrooms are black mushrooms that grow in Haiti. And just as you'd make a risotto, maybe John rice isn't quite as rich, but
Mhm.
it's a very simple mushroom and rice recipe that comes out so rich and flavorful that, yeah, it's served to guests. I liked serving it to people when they visit because the mushrooms are black, so you have this very inky thing. But as
Mhm.
soon as someone takes a taste, it's like, oh wow, it's truffles without the truffles.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, really great for when you're drinking a red wine dish and everybody's having meat and you don't really want to have fish with that beautiful bottle of red wine if it's a certain type of fish that usually people serve me fish and their sauces don't really work with the red wine, so it's very difficult. And a lot of it is the seasoning and the sauces as well. Now, you have something in here that I think would go over really well in what I call vegan New Orleans, which I'm always looking for because I always do look for the vegan places here because I have friends who are vegan who want to come, and I actually love eating vegan food. It's mushroom etouffee. Okay, that just sings to my soul for many, many reasons because it's a classic Creole dish, as you note, from the French verb étouffer. But here, you have, instead of crawfish or shrimp, you have mushrooms. So talk to me about that and how you create that wonderful umami there.
Well, mushrooms have umami built in, and
Exactly.
I get to New Orleans frequently, and I love it there. But you're right, it can be a little vegan unfriendly, but the techniques and the spices, yeah, I'm afraid I borrowed some, or at least I observed how dishes were being made, and I have, I brought that imagination and that palette back to my kitchen. I thought, how could I do this a little differently? And I didn't want this seafood. I wanted something a little richer. So yeah, mushrooms make a great stand-in, and you know what? It cooks up quicker than a crawfish etouffee.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you don't cook mushrooms long. Otherwise, they shrivel up.
Yes, but mushrooms are extremely forgiving. So if you do wind up cooking them too long, they'll still be delicious.
Well, we have the Crescent City Farmers Market here on Sundays, and
Yeah.
there's a very, very good mushroom grower with all sorts of exotic mushrooms, and he even has a grow your own mushroom kit. We gave one to our brother and sister-in-law for Christmas, and they're harvesting mushrooms. I'm curious. In Miami, are there really great farmers markets, and where are they located?
They're located everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans is a little like this. Miami is a bigger city than you realize. It's very spread out. So there's a farmer's market on Miami Beach, maybe two. There's one in North Miami. There's one in Coral Gables. There's one in South Miami. And there's certainly plenty down by the Redlands, which is where a lot of our food comes from. So wherever you are in the city, you can get access to fresh, just picked food.
I miss, growing up right by the Union Square Green Market in New York City. I'm spoiled living in the Hudson Valley where there were just farm stands everywhere in trucks. I'm spoiled. I'd like to see more of that in New Orleans. There's less of it than I had expected. I mean, I have my little Crescent City Farmers Market, but I want that big. Growing up, I grew up in Tennessee, and we had something called the curb market, and you just drive up to the curb, and there was just long lines of farmers, and they still have that in Chattanooga. It's just you don't drive to the curb; you go into a pavilion. They don't quite have that here, which I wish they did, and I think a lot of it, Ellen, I learned, big shock, is the growing seasons are different in the South. In the North, it's, we're heading into prime tomato season. Thank God we still have Creole tomatoes here, but no corn on the cob. I tell you, if I missed anything from the North right now, it's corn on the cob. Even from Tennessee, corn on the cob, and my Georgia peaches. What are the growing seasons like down there? Are there certain dishes that are more seasonal in a city that's hot all the time?
We were talking about collards, so thank you for reminding me. I need to pull mine up and eat them because, yeah, we're getting to the point where things are burning up out here. However, this is our tropical fruit season, and we are just swimming in mangoes. I can't think of anything more succulent and decadent and delicious than a ripe mango. We get beautiful, fresh avocados now. But our growing season, the tomatoes and eggplants and green beans and all our wonderful tender lettuces and greens, that doesn't happen until the fall. You got to wait until
Right.
it cools down a little bit.
It's really kind of it was really a shock to me because I grew up always in the Mid-South Northeast. And so coming here and learning I'm in a subtropical, lately seems like tropical area is a shock to me. Let's talk about mangoes because I used not to like mangoes. Matt Jaffrey did a whole essay on mangoes. Sure. And I learned to like them, but I only like them when they're seasoned a certain way. I like them with chili spices and lime. Lime for me is good on everything. Any fruit, particularly tropical, I lime it to death. Give us some examples of how you like to cook mango in both savory and sweet dishes, because we haven't talked about any sweet dishes. So let's talk about savory and sweet.
Well, you had mentioned I've got a thing for dust. I do. And there's another recipe in Miami Vegan called Magic Dust, which is very much what you talk about. It's lime juice, it's chili, it's a little salt, it's a little cumin. And you think, okay, how do these guys go together? Beautifully. They're good on salads if you want to add a sprinkle to some rice. But man, if you dip fresh fruit in them, it just sort of adds a whole other dimension. It's fantastic with mangoes or papaya.
Yeah, I did it actually with cantaloupe too. We have a lot of fresh cantaloupe right now, and I was putting some chili on there. And just for your listeners, we're talking about magic dust that's food and pot cakes that are food, not the other kind, which is the other kind that we have. There's some listeners. Do you get a lot of pineapple down there? Because pineapple, people think it's like when people think about tropical fruit and they think about Florida, they think about grapefruit, which I think is further north, right? Is grapefruit further north, or is it all in Florida?
More like Central Florida.
Yeah.
Although we do grow it, but not in the abundance that you get more upstate. You can grow pineapple here. Like if you cut off the top of one that you get and plant it, it will take, but you're going to have to wait a couple years before it bears fruit.
Oh, I know. My mother-in-law, who's super frugal, she's like the most New England frugal person ever. She would cut up the top of everything and plant it. She eventually grew an avocado tree. And probably took her like 30 years, but she grew it.
I was going to say, good for her, because most of us don't have like the patience.
I remember when I was little and avocados were discovered in Tennessee. And they were being touted from everything from, healthy meals to face cream. We planted a lot of avocado seeds. I was excited and hoping I would water it. Nothing ever happened. But Florida avocados are very different from Mexican avocados. They're bigger. How do they taste different?
Botanically speaking, avocados are fruit. I know we don't think of them that way. And Hass avocados get all the love and all the guacamole, so good for them. But green Florida avocados are bigger, so you get more avocado for your buck. They keep their shape and their color longer too. So they're great if you want to scoop out the seeds and fill them with something. They're good diced on ceviche. I have 3 different ceviche recipes in there, and they won't turn like that kind of sad brown that a Hass does. So they're great with a lot of things. They have less fat, so people who are watching their fat content, even when it's healthy fat like avocado is, you get more for less.
Well, that's interesting because I was always trained to go get the Hass avocados, which are really expensive. And I think they're shrinking. I swear to God, these avocados are getting smaller and smaller in the supermarket. So I
totally agree with you. I mean, like I hold them up like, what happened to you, honey?
It's bizarre. I mean, I think all the food is shrinking in the supermarket and the prices are growing and the fruits are shrinking. You know what's growing? Bigger and less flavorful? Strawberries. I have yet to find a strawberry that I can stomach. What the hell is going on? Even my Ponchatoula strawberries here in New Orleans and Louisiana, they weren't as good as they used to be. Like this, when I'm tasting wine, we were tasting wine in Sicily, and people were going, "Oh, it tastes like wild strawberries, tastes like wild strawberries," and I couldn't get it. I said, "You know why? I haven't had a strawberry that tastes like this in years." So it's a problem,
We get strawberries in winter. And, when people talk about January strawberries, most of them are lying, but we do get them right here. And they were spectacular this season.
Oh, it's interesting because I was not happy with the strawberry situation. Let's talk about, let's see. I want to just, before we go into sweets, what is taku taku? I'm looking at this picture and it looks like a bean burger taku taku.
It's very, very similar. It's a rice and beans burger. And I cannot remember which Latin country it originates from.
Peru.
My dear, you think I'd write my own cookbook? I'd remember everything. But it's a great use for rice and beans.
Leftover rice and beans is what you even saying there. And I think that's funny and great because when David moved in with me and I never cooked, he used to make rice. He loves to make rice. I didn't grow up with rice. Rice was not part of my culture in Tennessee. Neither was pasta. Beans, yes. And the rice would just sit in the refrigerator. And I'd be like, this rice is still here. So for me, the idea of repurposing rice into a burger, a bean and rice burger sounds great. And of course, the photos. Who did your photos? Because this looks really succulent.
That one, I think, was mine that my editor somehow blew up and look, most of these photos I did with my iPhone. I'm not a really good food photographer, but I did have help on the back end with my editor, and who gets credit. And the cover of the book. I have to talk about the cover of the book because
it's very pretty. You can kind of see it in my blur. There we go.
I like it because it is very pretty and it's very real. Everything in it came out of my photographer's garden or mine. So I want you to know you can create these recipes the way they look in the picture.
How big is your garden?
Not very. Probably bigger than your dining room table, but not a lot. I have a little raised bed garden in back. I don't have a whole lot of sunlight because we have a huge oak tree, which I love, but it needs a lot of shade. So I really, if anyone can grow a little of their own food, if it's a couple collards, if it's some mint you keep in a pot on the windowsill,
right?
It's so important. It saves you money. It creates a little more awareness of where your food comes from.
Yeah, I wish we don't have much of a yard here, but we have herbs, and so we're doing a lot with herbs. I wish we had more, but we have a pool, and that's even better. Swimming pool. So I'm happy about that. Let's just talk briefly about desserts, and then I want to ask you about where to eat and enjoy in Miami. Okay, I'm not a dessert person, so I'm going to ask you 3 big questions of the dessert spectrum. For someone like me who doesn't eat a lot of sweets, what are some desserts that are maybe less unctuously sweet? Because in New Orleans, it's all about unctuously sweet desserts. So what are some maybe from that end of the spectrum to, wow, you really want to blow it out with sugar love?
You know what? You and I have that in common, Melanie. I'm not a big dessert person, but I knew to sell this book, I better up my game. There is a triple gingerbread in there that is not Hansel and Gretel gingerbread. It's very gingery and it's not that sweet. So that might be a good thing for you.
Oh, I love gingerbread. Love gingerbread. Yeah. You know what else you have in here? I'm not a big chocolatey girl, but you know what I do like? The idea of chocolate, orange, almond, olive oil cake, because I love oranges, almond, and olive oil. And so the cocoa, you use Dutch processed cocoa, which is like the type of cocoa I would want in chocolate. That looks delicious.
That one is very good. And you know what? It's very easy to make. So if you're having someone over you need to impress, this is the dessert for you.
Usually I tell people to bring dessert. I do make cobbler, and you do have a cobbler recipe in here. I haven't made one this year because I made one from some New Orleans celebrity on TV, and it was just awful cobbler because it was just too sweet. I like it.
Butter and sugar, right.
Your summer fruit cobbler, which is vegan, has vegan butter, unbleached all-purpose flour, baking powder, a cup of evaporated cane sugar. I'd probably have less sugar, oat milk, and then fresh fruit. Now, it's interesting. Yours, mangoes. You mentioned mangoes and blueberries. I like peach cobbler. David brought me some cherries that are sitting in the refrigerator right now. Love plum cake. Okay, let's just say the best plum cake recipe in the world is Marion Burroughs' plum cake in the New York Times, which is the most requested recipe in the New York Times ever. But you can make that vegan as well, and I'm sure you have an option in here for a fruit type bread or cake. And you've got a cookin in here, a strawberry cookin. Puddings are kind of palatable for me as well. I like pudding instead of ice cream. You have a strawberry pudding, which I never would have thought about. That's kind of interesting.
That's a great use for like slightly tired strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
You can repurpose them and totally refresh them. And if you do like a quick bread that's slightly sweet, I have like 3 or 4 recipes. I have a mango one. I have a blueberry one I just did this week because I had some blueberries that needed some love. And to me, they're just sweet enough so they can be like a treat, but they're not cloying.
So I don't understand. So this is not pudding like JELLO pudding. This is British pudding. So it calls for bread, which is another great use for stale bread. So this is more of an English type pudding. So how would you describe that to someone that doesn't know it and is thinking about JELLO pudding?
This is a crazy recipe, and it's very, very old. You cook down fresh fruit with a little orange juice and maybe a little bit of sugar. So you get sort of a nice soupy, fruity thing. You add fresh bread. You kind of push everything into a mold and you leave it overnight in the fridge. This was a great Depression era recipe because you didn't need eggs. You didn't need dairy.
Right.
And it's mildly sweet. It's very refreshing. It's a summer pudding.
That looks like a fun thing that I could make. Now, in a little bit of time we have left, about a minute or so, talk to me about Miami. I know. Talk to me about Miami. I want to go to Miami. Where are some vegan places that you would recommend?
Okay, my very favorite place is a French bakery called L'Artisan. This woman does the best croissants that even won a blind tasting, and the French judges were like, how can you make a croissant this flaky without butter? Because she's magic. She does gorgeous vegan macarons, beautiful, beautiful jewel-like pastries, and a brunch all day. I was just there meeting some friends. Gosh, was it yesterday? And the place was full. You can get vegan omelets. You can get vegan sandwiches. It's delightful. It's called L'Artisan Bakery.
Where is it located? Where's L'Artisan Bakery located?
It is in Coral Gables, which is a little bit past downtown Miami, and it's very French and very adorable.
I love Coral Gables, and you kind of live near there. You kind of live in a very old area of Miami. You said, I think it's a beautiful area. So many people just go straight to South Beach, which is fine, but that South Beach is its own aura. And sizzle. I like old Miami. I like old, elegant Miami personally. Anywhere else you want to mention before we close out?
Oh gosh, I don't want to leave anyone out.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe on Broccoli Rising, you can have something about that. Do you have a post about that?
I have been asked to do that. So I want to make sure I have all my favorites in there and not leave anybody out, because no one should come to Miami and be hungry.
Gosh, absolutely not. I mean, I can't wait to go back down there sometime and just to go down there and go to the arts district, which I just lose myself in. I don't even have to go to the beach. I can go to Miami, just eat and bicycle around and go to the arts district and see friends and relatives and probably, never see the beach. But it's a great, great city and a gateway to so many wonderful places I want to visit in South America. I think it's going to be one of my new gateways, because now that we live in New Orleans, we can fly from Miami somewhere. So I look at that all the time, and all those cruises that are there. I mean, it's crazy. It's an amazing place. You're lucky to live there. Ellen, I want everybody to know again, the book is Miami Vegan, Plant-Based Recipes from the Tropics to Your Table. Congratulations on this book. And I hope it's a big success, and I hope to connect with you over a great vegan meal sometime soon.
You come down to Miami and we will make it happen.
And you come over to New Orleans and we'll make it happen, because I got some good vegan places here too.
Fantastic. It's a deal.
All right. You've been listening to Fearless, Fabulous You with Melanie Young and my guest, Ellen Cantor. Are you hungry? I am. I'm hungry. My mouth is watering. I want something succulent. That's the word of the day, succulent. As always, you have the choice to live life the way you want, not the way other people want you to live. Always live it on your terms and always choose fearless and fabulous. Thank you very much. Have a great day.